Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, dudes and dudettes, the sexy and the not so sexy, big children and little. Welcome to the information era, where everyone on the streets has a computer in their pocket, but nobody really knows shit.
Let's think this through.
Let's think this through.
Let's think this through. Let's think this through.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, dudes and dudettes, the sexy and the not so sexy, big children and little. I am the novelist, author, poet, Lamont Anthony Wright, aka Graffiti Bleu. Let's think this through. Episode 2. Basically what we're doing is we are taking a scientific method and putting an artistic interpretation onto it. There are variations to the scientific method. In this particular variation, we're going to do a few things. First, we're going to make an observation. Then we will form a question based on the observation. Then we will form a hypothesis based on the question. Then we'll make a prediction based on the hypothesis. Then we'll do some experiments. When it comes to experiments, I want folks to realize one thing, that I am not a scientist. I am an artist. So for the purpose of this blog, I don't have a controlled area where I'm doing these social experiments. So the experiment part of this blog will be more in the life experience that I have conducted these experiments and that I have conducted these social experiments. And I'm just giving testimony for things that I have either witnessed myself and experienced myself, or I have witnessed happen in the social experiments of other people. Does that make sense? And finally, after all of that is said and done, we will analyze the data. After we analyze the data, I will present my wisdom to you. And there's a couple things you can do with this wisdom. You could either accept my wisdom for what it is or what have you, or you can reject it. It really makes me no never mind on whether you accept or reject. The bottom line is, at least to me, what's more important? It's less important if you agree or disagree with anything you hear on this blog. To me, what's important to me is that we get the muscle between your ears active. And that would bring me great joy. The world needs more critical thinkers now, doesn't it? So let's get right to it. My personal observation is that I noticed that the rhetoric between women and men online has reached a fever pitch, and people seem to be extraordinarily disgruntled, unsatisfied, or just plain angry, pissed, or upset in the opinions of romantic affairs. When you ask women about romance and they have a certain point of view, and you ask men about romance and they have a different point of view, and my observation is not a surprising one. Of course, women and men view things, see things, and think about things differently. We have different processes. That's just what it is. And I didn't make the observation because I was looking to make a revelation as to the differences between women and men. What I have realized in the last few years is that the rhetoric has reached a fever pitch. There does not seem to be much common ground between how women are thinking romances should go and how men are thinking that romances should go. Which leads me to a question. Is there a gender war going on? Is there a gender war? So the question, the observation was about the rhetoric between women and men in the confines of romance, and the question that led from that observation was, is there a gender war? And my hypothesis to the question on is there a gender war is yes and no. Actually, I wouldn't say that. My hypothesis is no. There is no gender war. I read a book called Propaganda 101. Very insightful. And it really was not only talking about propaganda, but was talking about how propaganda was very necessary to influence a large population of people in this kind of herd mentality. Like there was going to be no way you can herd people to do what you wanted them to do without propaganda. They were talking about the necessity of propaganda, loose necessity. All depends on what you're trying to do. It would be nice if you could tell the truth and motivate people to do whichever they wanted to do. But in the confines of this book, it was just like, well, for all intents and purposes, on what the people in power want to do, one of the easiest ways to get them to execute whatever the heck you wanted to get them to execute was through propaganda. Now, that being said, the people that are perpetuating this gender war to me are the same people that always talk about some sort of war going on. And my take is, if you can't trust the messenger, can you trust the message? We were told that there was a war on drugs. Was there a war on drugs? Was money being put into rehabilitation and making sure that people didn't become addicts and people did something else with their time besides looking for pleasure of that nature? Or was the real war on people of color so that we could fill the prisons with a bunch of free labor and take the rights away from people who look like me? We were told there was a war on crime. Is that right? We all know how well that went, now don't we? Different war, very similar results. The economically disparaged had their rights taken away and they were massively incarcerated, and they made a lot of money by propagating and agitating or catering, whatever, however you want. Is that the right word? I don't know if that's the right word. By stoking, there's the word, stoking people's fears. Keeping you scared. You're easy to control when you're scared. That's why they do what they do. So, if they said there was a war on drugs, but there really wasn't a war on drugs, and they said there was a war on crime, but there really wasn't a war on crime. So when the idiot box, the television, television, when the television says there's a gender war, Is it really? So, now that being said, sure, it is my observation, and with the knowledge that I have, is that the pendulum will always swing, right? Sometimes the pendulum goes from one extreme to the other, right? Regardless of what you may believe, the fact is that in the last 100 years, women have come into unfamiliar territory. And that is, and that unfamiliar territory was that of power. They had not necessarily been in this particular state of power, whereas they had the right to vote, when once before they didn't have the right to vote. They had the right to work, when before they didn't necessarily have the right to work, or however that goes. And they had been given control of their reproductive system, when before they did not have that. Before birth control, before contraception, and all of this stuff. You know, a woman had to be extraordinarily careful, because if this chick decides to be promiscuous with no contraception, no birth control, and so forth, she had to be sure that if she should happen to get pregnant by whomever the fortunate guy is, she had to make sure that this cat was going to be around. No? So we're into new territory, and all of this happened inside of not too many years. So now we're in unfamiliar territory. We're in a power spot. And more women than men are graduating college. These chicks are making more money than their male counterparts. They can either choose school or choose the old school way and be domesticated. Maybe there's a combination of both somewhere. So of course, this is relatively new. Even these places of businesses, even these places of business where men and women work together, in the cubicle, in the office, in the hospital, on the railroad, in an airplane, whatever it is, where men and women once upon a time did not mingle like that. Men worked with men, women stayed in their groups, and socially, many of the things we are seeing now in 2021, this is very, very new. So, with this newfound power, of course, with any people, with any species that has new power, the limits of that power will be tested, right? So we see what we see, and it goes way to some of the views of feminism can be pretty extreme, where it's just like, well, I don't really need a man. I don't need a man for nothing. I don't need no man. And it comes off very angry. I'm like, okay, you very well may not need a man, but it seems like whoever created us said, hey, it takes you to work together for you to make more of you. So men and women better figure it out, because the only way you guys are going to continue on is if you work together somehow, whatever form that's in. And that needs to go with that so we can make more. No? So if one gender is is pushing the envelope, so to speak, and they're testing the limits of their power, what is the other gender going to do? At some point, the other gender is going to respond. For every action, there's a reaction. For everything that's done, there's a repercussion. There is karma associated with everything we do. So if there is a section, no matter how big or small, of people that are saying, you know what, this is what it is for females, this is what it is for women, we have power, we want this, and this, there's going to be a response from the other side. And if on one end, if one gender is responding, whatever energy that gender is communicating with, that energy will come back. It always comes back around, don't it? If you are nice to somebody, that energy comes back to you. That person you were nice to might not necessarily be nice to you, but it is my belief that there's no way you can. It is my belief that whatever you put out into the universe is what will return to you. Bottom line, fear begets fear, love begets love, kindness begets kindness, and all of that kind of stuff. My belief, you can dispute it if you want to, that's fine by me. I'm okay with that. I'm okay. My prediction, based on the hypothesis, is this too shall pass. In the metaphor, if the so-called gender war is simply the effects of the large waves from just jumping into the pool, right? Then that will eventually settle down. All of this stuff is relatively new. If we decide to listen to one another, at some point things will even out. We will find a balance. The water in the pool rather, will come to being even, where all you can see are little ripples on top of the pool water when the wind, when a gentle breeze goes across the surface, or something to that effect. You know, when we come to the table with what we can bring to it other than what we can take from it. When we approach relationships, when men and women, or whatever combination you choose, figure out that a relationship will more than likely succeed if the two look at it as what they look at a relationship as to what I can bring to the relationship instead of what I can take from it. Many relationships go wrong straight out of the gate because this one and that one are looking at it like, what can I get instead of what necessarily can I bring? With that being said, this is a business deal. Anytime you go into any relationship, in my humble opinion, it is a business deal. So, yes, it is wise to look at everything and say, okay, what are the stakes here? And at the end of the day, how am I in a position to succeed? And are they in a position to succeed for whatever success is in your humble, and whatever your definition of success is, right? But those things, relationships seem to thrive when someone is thinking about more about what they can bring to it than what they can take from it. So these things will even out. And I see, as it stands today, I can see the slightest of shifts in the rhetoric, right? I love the blog. I love blogs so much. I'm blogging myself right now, right? But there are some pretty strong voices out there that are, in my opinion, providing balance. Love Dorsey I think she does a lot of different things. I follow her on YouTube. I know she does an Instagram live, and I know she also does like one-on-one consultations through Zoom. I love Dorsey. She has a brilliant way of mixing intelligence, entertainment, and she's funny as hell too, and a ratchet delivery unlike anything I've ever freaking seen. And I'm not sure how she maintains all of those elements in that package, but I really love what she's doing, and she's very real and she's very raw. And that rawness mixed with intelligence is what I believe resonates with people, because it certainly resonated with me. You have people like Jordan Peterson, took off, internet sensation. He had a few things go viral. Social scientist, definitely believe he's Canadian, and he had a voice that was so sound and it resonated with a lot of people, and he gave a alternative voice that gave balance to a lot of the ramped up rhetoric that went unchecked for a long time. Kevin Samuels. Support this guy. And he is I believe he is an image consultant, and he has views, delivery, and an intellect that just resonates with me. He's doing the good work. He is doing good work because he is starting that conversation. Some people may have a problem with all three, with Love Dorsey, Jordan Peterson, or Kevin Samuels, because their delivery, all three of them, they're different entities, but all three of them deliver it straight, no chaser. And when I hear heavy critiques of one of these three, it is always along that vein, like he or she could have said what they said a bit better, deliver it nice. I'm here to tell you, man, the revolution ain't nothing nice about the revolution, especially when we are revolting against the programming and adapting critical thought. There's just no way to do it. Sometimes you gotta really blow people's minds and get rid of all of that old thinking and put in some some new thoughts, or get rid of all of that propaganda and let some people think for themselves. Hell, I'm championing that cause. The name of this blog is Let's Think This Through, right? So, as far as the experiment part of this blog, I want to say that power is a very organic thing. It is always moving and changing hands. Those who do not have power may come into power. Those who already have power may find themselves without it. It moves. Power is almost like the wind. It just goes from place to place. Now, people try to put laws in place to try to hold on to power, but that lasts only for so long. So, because power moves the way it does, I personally am witnessing the most subtle of shifts in the other direction. I've heard the argument from one side, and the argument from this side, and now you have other voices that are saying, wait, the Love Dorseys, the Jordan Petersons, and the Kevin Samuels, and there are a lot of people in between then, but those are my top three. You have those people that's just like, wait a minute, before we run off saying this, saying that, blaming him, blaming her, let's look at the whole plate and say, what is going on here really? So let's analyze the data, shall we? Looking at this, looking at everything from top to bottom, and I believe that this shift that I'm witnessing right now is at least ironclad proof to me that new conversations are being had. There is a saying, when the student is ready, the master will appear. Now you can agree or disagree with the people I mentioned, or you can agree or disagree with what I'm saying here. However, these people, the three that I named in my top three, are not going viral only because they're smart, intelligent, entertaining, and and whatever else you want to put in there. But the meat of what they are saying, the crux of what they are saying, what the core message of what they're saying is actually resonating with somebody, right? So you can be the best whatever in the world, but it means a little bit more to so much more when you rap it and you know what for. Excuse me, Eminem line. It means it's just something else when what you're saying is resonating to a huge group of people. So the tide is shifting. I believe so. And I'm not a type of person that will live in fear, live as a fearful person, or try to get views by selling fear. Like, ooh, will women and men figure it out one day? Tune in at 7 o'clock and find out. That's ridiculous. Of course, women and men will figure it out. I think the so-called gender war is way hyped up and way overblown and propagated for whatever reason. They want to keep us separate. I mean, they always want to keep us separated. I mean, some of these cats in power specialize in breaking up families. You know what I mean? What are hateful people going to do besides declare a war on love, right? So those are my thoughts after thinking things through. You can accept what I said, or you can reject what I said, and that's fine. Either way you slice it, because what's really important to me is that I got the muscle between your ears active. Take care of yourself.